Today on Blue Values TV, meet one of the candidates running for the United States Congress in Congressional District 4. Stay tuned. Welcome to Blue Values TV. Blue Values TV is a production of the Blue Values Coalition. Blue Values Coalition is a nonprofit organization dedicated to informing, educating, and engaging our neighbors in the governance of our communities. Look for us online at bluevaluescoalition.org. Our guest today is Mr. Jeff Gerlach of Lincoln, California. Jeff Gerlach is a candidate for the United States Congress in Congressional District 4. CD4 runs from Roseville, Rockland, Lincoln, most of Auburn, Truckee, and then goes southward all the way to the eastern edges of Fresno County. Very large congressional district. Mr. Gerlach is running as an independent. He's not a Democrat nor a Republican. There are two other opponents that Mr. Gerlach is facing in the June primary. The top two finishers, regardless of party, will advance to the November election. So the June primary is very important for our viewers to all go and vote. The top two finishers will face off in November for the House of Representatives. Welcome, Mr. Gerlach, and thank you for coming on our show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So what is it, Mr. Gerlach, that would inspire you to run for the United States Congress, and what do you hope to accomplish there?
I think the inspiration came out of frustration. You know, I think like all of us watch what's going on with our political figures and the talking heads and, you know, the whole show that is Washington. And I was frustrated and felt that my vote didn't count enough, that I wasn't really trying to do something to change just by voting, and what else could I do? And when I looked at the district and I looked at the critiques of how our congressman is working, I thought, well, this is a perfect chance. I thought I'd be one in a dozen of the guerrilla primary, and I find that I'm one of three and the only one that's not a Republican. So I've already done better than I thought I could ever do. So all of this is just success as far as on top of that, and hopefully I can bring up some things that'll change the conversation.
And what about your background? Can you tell us a little bit about where you come from, how long you've been in Lincoln, and so on?
Well, I moved to California when I was 4, and I grew up in Ventura County. When I finished college from Cal Lutheran University with a degree in English, I moved to the Bay Area and lived in Contra Costa County until last year. My family, who's been here for a decade, encouraged me to look at property up here, and I ended up buying a house. And I liked the house so much I wasn't going to turn it into a rental property. I decided to move here, and I love it here. I'm having a great time. I love the people. It's generally a different pace in the Bay Area where I've been for the past couple decades.
We could be slightly biased, but Placer County really is a great place to live, isn't it?
Yes. I love being here. I think I'm going to stay.
So what do you see as the most important issues coming up in this congressional race?
Before I started being a politician and talking to the people of the district, for me it was the NSA wiretapping. I'm a tech professional, and I think what they're doing is shameful and something that needs to be stopped, and I don't see any politicians that are standing up to whatever community within our government that thinks that's the right thing to do. But as I'm in the district looking at talking to the people and saying, hey, I could represent you, what do you want to what do you want out of a representative, what's important to you? Water and jobs are the two big things. And water is, I think it's probably time to act on water, because we have a drought to motivate people and to, bring about a compromise and make change. We haven't had significant water reservoir expansion since the 1970s. And
so let's talk about water. What would you like to see to make us more secure in our water delivery capability?
Well, you can only go so far with conservation. I think we need to expand our storage. And I'm hearing a number of different opportunities to be able to do that, and work that's been done in the past that can be brought up again. I need to study it more to tell you exactly what I think should be done. But water is a big issue, and I see everybody's motivated to do something about it. It's a good time to be in the conversation, I would think.
The other issue that you mentioned is jobs. So Placer County and the Congressional District 4 is a rural, mountainous region, and two of the biggest problems that this district faces is we're still lagging behind the rest of the economy, and we're certainly lagging behind in jobs, and poverty is pretty rampant in Congressional District 4. What would you do to bring prosperity back to Congressional District 4, or to improve it at least?
Well, the breakdown is there's a certain amount of industrial activity up here in the more populated areas, and then in the less populated areas, I'm trying to figure out what the opportunity for expansion would be. There's water problems where the water rights go away, so they can't use all the water that they might want for agriculture. On the positive side, it's a beautiful place. I think tourism should be a feature, or something that should be featured. Bringing the Bay Area tech sector up here, taking things out of Rancho Cordova and bringing them over to the 4th District into Rockland and Roseville. All of those are sound ideas. I haven't talked to any businesses that have expansion plans, or businesses from outside that would be interested in putting something up. All of those would be something that I would have to look into, but I would consider it to be good ideas if we could bring them about.
Now, if you're in the House of Representatives, we know that there's a really sharp divide in the House of Representatives today along party lines. So many votes go strictly along party lines. How would you, as an independent, hope to bridge that gap, and how would you work with Democrats and or Republicans to really be effective in the House of Representatives?
Good question. Without having been there, I can't say for sure. I don't know. But one of the things that I would have on my side is I wouldn't be obligated to vote with a caucus like that. If there's something that the district needed that the party doesn't, then I'm not obligated to the party because I'm not taking their money, I'm not putting on their label. I think that gives me an advantage. My personality is such that I like to talk to people about what solutions are and what options are and how to get things done. I would think that when things become contentious and I'm not obligated, then I become valuable at some point, and that's when I would need to use that value to bring value to the district. I'm sure I could go with any caucus. That's kind of the openness of it. I think that's part of the problem with the system that we have right now, is that there are just some influences that aren't from around here that will say, hey, we can't do that, even if it's in California. And when there's a party person there that has to vote along the party lines because the party leaders are saying so, that's a restriction on how well he can take care of the constituency.
So not being a part of either political party, then voters would probably want to know more on where you stand on some of the other social issues and some of the other issues that are out there. They probably know where Republicans in general would stand, or where Democrats in general would stand, but they would have no idea exactly where you would stand on those. So allow me to ask you about a couple of the questions, and if you rate yourself from conservative to liberal, where would you describe yourself in that spectrum between conservative and liberal on both economic and social issues?
Well, I'm a businessman. I'm a technologist, and when it comes to business, I would be, well, conservative is a loaded word, I suppose.
They're both loaded words.
Yeah. There was a term that Noam Chomsky used a lot about what used to be in the Republican Party, and a moderate Republican. Okay, and I would say that if I was 40 years ago, I would be considered a moderate Republican, but I don't think they exist anymore. You know, I'm a libertarian as far as the human rights issues and people. You know, we should be at liberty to choose what we want to do with our life and our time. And we shouldn't be forced into like doing something for somebody else, or you know, being told by somebody else what to think or what to do. We should be free to make our own choices. Commerce needs to be regulated. You know, federal regulations make commerce fair. At one point in history, you know, we said monopolies are bad, and they, you know, reduce competition and reduce choice. Now it's like monopolies are the only thing that are good, and they're going to save us, and everything is too big to fail. Basically, that's the same, saying the same thing. So it's hard to put a label on me. I don't want to be labeled. I look at a particular issue and I try to say, okay, you know, let's look at, you know, from a federal government point of view as a candidate, I would like, let's look at the Constitution. Like, you know, where is it in terms of human rights and our ability to choose for ourselves versus being told what to do by the community or our government?
So let's take a look at a specific. Recently in the House of Representatives, the Ryan budget plan passed with votes just by the Republican Party. What did you think of the Ryan budget plan? What things in there are you especially fond of, and which things in there would you really like to see different?
I think the cuts in social spending just don't take into account the hardship that causes. And when the only place they want to expand or to allow things to stay the same is in the military budget or the Black Ops budget, and then everything else that they do for the people is they want to draw back and cut it. I would at least want to see cuts be equal, or to stop expansion in some parts of the government that, you know, how much more do they need? If we could just not spend more for a while and let the revenue base and what we produce start to exceed what we're, you know, like taking away in the federal spending or in government spending in general, I think we would have, you know, a period of economic expansion. But it's really, you know, the Ryan budget and a lot of the Republican Party seem to be a business contingent that just wants to, you know, tip the scales to the favor of the business at the cost of, you know, the people. And that's hard to watch. And especially in a district that is, you know, has poverty like we see in the 4th District, that money that does come from the federal government or any government agency into the pocket of the people stays there. You know, it moves around from hand to hand, from small business to small business, and it doesn't go away. You know, when you pull that money out, then that creates a hole. And there's really not anything to come back and fill it up. It's not like the economy is expanding around them, and, you know, tourism is up in the area because the rest of the world has so much money to spend.
Let's talk about a few of the other social issues and just some short answers. Where do you stand on abortion rights for women?
Well, I think that's constitutional, where you have to let, you know, first off, abortion is a tragedy, right? And anybody that's faced with that choice should, you know, be able to make that choice with their family and with their physician and whoever else that wants to advise them on what's right to do. The government should have nothing to do with it.
Very good. Marriage equality?
Who cares?
Well, some people care who are affected by it.
There again, back to constitutional, I think there's a separation between church and state. Okay? Marriage is a partnership, is a contract. You know, it's, you know, there's a bunch of rules. It's set into play with a license that you get from the government. If two people want to form a partnership, who am I to say? And, you know, full disclosure, my sister is married in California to her, you know, longtime spouse or significant other. They've adopted children. They are so married. And I've been married, and I'm no longer married. Okay. You know, and I'm a father, so you know, I think family is really important, and I think who you want to be with and spend your time with and share your life with is not something the state should decide for you.
Okay. Immigration reform. Would you favor some path towards citizenship for people who have been in this country without documentation?
Yeah, there again, that's a, you know, the human rights issue. We've created the laws that allowed them to be here. We're totally taking advantage of the labor that they're doing. We have to do something to, take them out of this tenuous legal status that they're in. Path to citizenship. I hear proposals right now where they want to okay, everybody that's here that doesn't have a criminal record, 18 months from now you're a citizen, you're voting, and it's I think that something that quick would interrupt the balance. It's been decades in the making, and we need to be careful about that. I think the process right now for people to start the process, if you showed up here today and wanted to become a citizen, takes between 5 and 10 years, depending on which way you're going about the process. I think the process is terribly complicated, and it's government, so it's difficult and it's arduous, and people just avoid it, and because it's easy enough to be here without it, because there's so many people that are. So something needs to change about how that happens. Making it fair and not tip a balance would be the trick to making it work and not have it be a disaster.
Now, earlier you described yourself in some respects a libertarian on certain issues. What would you feel about government regulations to protect our environment if they conflict with the right of a person who owns a piece of property to do what they want with the property? Where do you see environmental regulations in all of this?
I'd like to see some compromise.
What kind of compromise?
I was up at Columbia College yesterday, and I got a chance to talk to some of their forestry and their science department, and they were very upset at current congressional leaders because they were taking science that they had done on certain live life forms that are up in the Sierras, and totally twisted it and told a completely different story off their paperwork, and they were very upset about that. And then they started to talk about a little frog that is in an area where there's cattle grazing, and they've been living together for 100 years or more, and in that in the water changes that we're having, they're having trouble, breeding, and they're trying to figure out how to protect them. And these students and faculty and people that are local have offered to come up and find out where they are and section off a fence and do all the work and just keep the cattle out of there. And the cattle ranchers are going, well, no, if we do that, then we open up this whole can of worms with the federal government, and they'll never let us in there. And so it becomes, there's no compromise. And a lot of that is due to the way things have happened in the past with the federal government and the bureaucracies that we have. So I don't know. Now that I have contacts that really know what the science is up there and people up studying, willing to work on it, I need to know more. I don't know enough about that.
There's been a rather contentious debate over the last 5 years on the Affordable Care Act in the House of Representatives. The House Republicans have been trying to repeal that, I think for 50 times or something like that. The Republicans are now trying to regroup and come up with an alternative proposal for affordable health care for everyone. What do you think needs to be done regarding health care for people in this country at the federal level?
Well, everybody talks about the Affordable Care Act in terms of health care, and it's really about insurance. And if we can affect the insurance to make things reasonable across the board, and then have the federal government participate in where there's losses for people that don't have coverage now, all of that makes sense. The way that the insurance lobby wrote the Affordable Care Act, it's really a protection act for the insurance company to make sure that they get a profit. So in those terms, I don't think the Affordable Care Act was everything that it was intended to be. I think it's having trouble. I think that there's more trouble coming. And there are parts of the Affordable Care Act that really do protect the insurance companies that if it gets worse, that will become problematic for all the politicians.
So what would you like to see instead?
Well, I think they should have just done Medicare for everybody. It's a system that already works.
A single-payer system.
Well, yeah, and this a single-payer system and the option to add features, right? There's a minimum that everybody gets, and that if you have money or special needs or special wants and you want to work all that and buy more services, then you should be able to. Single payer gets the rap that there's only one way you get it, and it's how we choose. And I think Medicare was a really good compromise, and why we didn't do something like that or just extend it to everybody. I can only guess that the insurance companies wouldn't make enough money off it, so they wouldn't let it happen.
Yeah, I think there was generally opposition primarily from the Republican Party on single payer or a Medicare for all type of a system. But that's the one that appeals to you the most.
Well, it just makes the most sense, especially with the mess that they got. I mean, there again, where do the compromises come into play? Where are all the friction points between what needed to change versus how it was going to change? All I see when I read the Affordable Care Act is how they guarantee who's going to get paid and when. So it's all about insurance. Healthcare hasn't really changed. It's just that system where how we pay for healthcare is evolving.
Yeah.
I think it was a first step was needed, but it wasn't a very graceful first step.
Yeah. Well, let's change topic a little bit here. In your campaign, you have not raised a large amount of money. In fact, I don't think you filed your committee because you haven't raised enough money to break through that limit yet. What do you think about the campaign financing laws that are out there, the recent rulings by the Supreme Court that allow individuals to donate unlimited amounts of money in aggregate to different campaigns, and the laws that allow corporations to donate unlimited money to politicians in general?
Well, you're right. I have not crossed that threshold of spending or taking donations of more than $5,000. I have filed Form 1 and Form 2, and I formed a committee, and I have a number. And actually, I talked to my analyst today because it's the 15th, and quarterly reports would be due from last quarter. And I got all the paperwork saying I'm supposed to turn them in, but I haven't done the $5,000 threshold yet, so I don't owe anything, and technically I didn't have to do Form 1 and 2 and form a committee. So I've done all that. And I plan on going at least through the entire primary process to see if I can make it into the general without going past that threshold. And I'm doing that intentionally because I think that the conversation needs to change on how we elect our government officials, especially our federal representatives.
In what way? That's a very important statement.
Well, so to your original question, the Supreme Court decisions they keep saying free speech, and money is speech, especially in capitalism, and it's hard to argue the premise that people should be able to spend whatever they want or be able to say whatever they want in an election season. It's really about how we listen, right? If the people knew enough to listen through the noise to find out what the candidates are really saying, and look past what the mainstream media is saying in their memes into the facts that are really going on, and maybe read the bills or follow things closer than the infotainment that we get, I think that we could change how we elect our officials.
If we had an idealistic world, which we don't have.
Well, I think it's a certain amount of awareness. There's a lot of apathy where people say, I don't understand, and I don't want to take the time to understand, so I don't even vote. I've run into that a lot out there. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of surprised. And I followed along and voted the trend for the longest time as a youth. And then I started looking closer, and I wanted to know more, and then I realized, and I became so frustrated with what the truth is behind these things, or how they're really acting, that here I am running for Congress, trying to make a difference in that way. And I think if I can make that statement by, winning a primary and not having to file, with the FEC for, I'm not taking anybody's money, I haven't sold out. And it also would comment that the dissension is so high with the system that people are willing to look through the noise. And it's almost like the size of the district is an advantage for me, because the only way you can get a word out to everybody is to be around. And we just are driving all over the place, showing up as many places as we can, handing out my little cards. I'm for real, I'm really here. Vote for me, give this idea a chance.
What kind of response are you getting when you travel across the district?
Everybody is more than supportive. Even the opponents in the campaign. I am overwhelmed, almost shocked at how cordial everything has been so far. And the press and the people and whoever I run into, I've gone to a number of counties to talk to the election office and just introduce myself once I got on the ballot. And it's a great place. They're great people. People are in a good mood. They're happy to see it. When I tell my story, they're like, "Wow, that's really great. I hope you do something with it." And then I just hope they vote for me.
So back to this question about campaign financing. So I didn't quite get an answer to, are you okay with the idea of corporations and people being able to donate unlimited amounts, or would you want to see some kind of a change to that system?
I mean, obviously, change would be better, but with the Supreme Court and the decisions that they've made, until there's a new court, or until there's a constitutional convention to change something about how we do it, I don't see that happening. I mean, this is like, that's going to continue to go on, and people have to become aware on their own.
But would you favor such a constitutional amendment or a constitutional convention?
Not now.
Okay.
I know. If we tried to change the Constitution now, we could start a death spiral for the country if we went that deep into now. I just don't think that if something happened where everybody was on the same page and it was time to change the Constitution, then I would be for it. But I don't see it in this, the acrimony that there is right now. We shouldn't be changing something as basic. We should figure out how to get the little stuff right before we change the big stuff.
Well, if you look at the polling on this Citizens United decision, across the board, Democrat, Republican, Independent, it polls very negatively. People don't like that decision from the Supreme Court. So are we really as divided as all that on the influence of big money into politics today?
Oh, no, I don't think we're divided on the influence of big money. I just don't think that the solution is the Constitutional Convention.
Oh, okay.
Okay? I think that's the only way we could change it legally, right? But I don't think that, that is a path we should drive down. I'm doing this to try to get other people encouraged that it's not impossible to do this yourself. And with the apathy that's out there, there's no Democrats in the race. There's no other party in the race except for 2 Republicans. And it's time that people step up, what is it, citizen candidates. We need more citizen candidates, not professional politicians.
Yeah, yeah. It's a tough problem. Do you have any final messages for our viewers?
Well, get out and vote. Hopefully you'll vote for Jeff Gerlach on June 3rd in the primary.
And vote in June.
In June.
Don't wait till
Yeah,
November.
actually, that is, thank you for the reminder. That's a great message. No matter what party you're in the June primary, you get to vote for, the candidates and the top 2 go.
That's right.
Okay.
Regardless of party.
Regardless of party. So
Yeah, that's something we're certainly trying to make sure everyone is aware of. Thank you, Mr. Gerlach, for appearing with us on the show today. Best of luck to you, and thank you, viewers, for joining us on Blue Values TV. Until next time, good night.